Good afternoon. My name is Gil McGowan. I'm president of the Alberta Federation of Labour. I just took a very long walk in the cold, and it was the happiest time taking a long walk in the cold ever because it shows that Albertans care. You guys at the back and perhaps not even at the front probably can't see my hat, but it says the 100th anniversary of the Winnipeg General Strike. I thought it would be appropriate for today. You know, there's a saying in politics that whenever a citizen writes an email or sends a letter to their representative, you can be sure that that person is speaking on behalf of at least 100 others. And this afternoon, I'm going to submit to you that when an Albertan stands out in the cold to send a message, you can be sure that their voice represents thousands and thousands of others. And that's what you are doing today. You know, yesterday was Black Friday. And in many ways, it was the blackest Friday ever. For the last 14 years, I've had the honor and the privilege of representing 175,000 unionized Albertans in this province. And I have to say that in my 14 years as president, there has never been a sadder day. It began with the announcement that 700 registered nurses and registered psychiatric nurses are going to lose their jobs because of this government. But they weren't done, because just a couple of hours later, another letter was delivered, this time to the Health Sciences Association of Alberta, and they were told that another 1,000 workers would be losing their jobs. And then by the end of the day, we heard from the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees that as a result of this government and their policies, 5,900 of their members will be losing their jobs. Do you remember when Jason Kenney and his henchmen, many of whom are in that building next to us, do you remember when they said, "Vote for us and we'll give you jobs"? Have they given us jobs? In fact, instead of jobs, they've given us the destruction of jobs. Do you remember when they said that they would make life more affordable for ordinary Albertans? Have they made life more affordable for ordinary Albertans? The announcements that were made yesterday about job cuts and their promise to slash the wages for thousands, hundreds of thousands of Alberta public sector workers are making a cruel joke of that promise about affordability. And do you remember when they said that they were going to grow the economy? Will what they're doing grow the economy? So here's a lesson for you, Jason. Here's a lesson for how the economy really works. Even in a resource-dependent province like ours, 60% of our economy is driven by people like you. Consumer spending. And when you cut wages, when you cut jobs, when you throw people onto the unemployment line, that doesn't grow the economy, that shrinks it. Now, all of this would have been bad enough. But what makes it even worse are two things. First, the impact that these irresponsible cuts are going to have not only on the people who are losing their jobs as a result of their ideological obsession, but it's also going to hurt ordinary Albertans. Make no mistake, The cuts that were announced yesterday, and they're really just the tip of the iceberg, the cuts that we saw yesterday and the cuts that we will see in the coming weeks and months will be felt in the classrooms. They will be felt in hospitals and healthcare facilities. They will be felt in our universities and colleges, and they will be felt in our municipalities. Every community, every family in this province, whether they work in the public sector or not, will feel the negative impacts of these cuts. And what makes this even worse, what makes all of this even worse is how unnecessary it is. Because it wasn't the nurses, the teachers, the doctors, the municipal workers, the university lecturers, all these people are losing their jobs. It wasn't them that created the deficit that these guys are so preoccupied with. You know what created the deficit? It was they did. Years and years of conservative governments that pretended that we had this the thing they call the Alberta Advantage. It was a mirage. They said you can have low taxes, we can have the lowest taxes on rich people and corporations in the country, and still have good services. But you know how they did it? It was a sleight of hand. We, the people of Alberta, we own our resources. Oil, gas, oil sands. We own those resources. But you know what they did? They took the money that we earned as the owners of that resource and they used it for 20, 30 years to subsidize irresponsibly low taxes for profitable corporations and the wealthy. And when the price of gas collapsed, and when the price of oil collapsed, and when foreign multinational oil companies started fleeing our province, all of a sudden there was a hole in our budget because they were not charging a fair price for the resources that we own. So they created this deficit hole. But they want us to fill it with our jobs, with our services, with our livelihoods. What do we say to that? No way! So today on this chilly day, we are sending a strong message. We're sending a message that Albertans won't buy it. We won't buy it. We won't buy it. We won't buy it. We won't buy it.
We won't buy it. We won't buy it. We won't buy it. We won't buy it.
In conclusion, I just want to tell all of you who have come out here on this cold day, first I want to tell you that the labor movement is more united than I've ever seen it in my time as an activist and as president. We know that this is our moment. This is our moment to stand up and push back, and that's exactly what we intend to do. The next thing I want to tell you is the importance of resistance. Because these guys may have won a majority government, and they may be celebrating that majority that they won based on a lie. They promised jobs, they promised growth, they're giving us the opposite of those things. They may be celebrating in there, but we have to remember that a majority government is not a blank check. This province still belongs to the citizens. It still belongs to people like you, and we're going to remind them of that every single day. And the final thing that I want to say,
General strike! 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 General strike!
okay, the final two things then. No. Yeah. So the final two things I want to say. Almost every public sector worker in this province will see their collective agreements expire in the new year. In some cases, it will be February. In some cases, it will be March. In some cases, it will be April or May. But by the spring, every public sector worker in this province, whether represented by AUP, UNA, HSA, CUPE, they're all going to be in the position to strike. And given what we've seen from this government, they are going to catalyze the strike. And so for those of you who are union members, prepare for this confrontation. And for those of you who are not, prepare to join us on the picket lines. And I just want to wrap up by saying this. The next election in this province is 3.5 years away. So in those 3.5 years, I want you to remember the 2 R's. Resistance and remember. Because the next time Albertans go to the ballot box, they will be won and they will be done, and we will bring the kind of progressive kind of future back to our province that we believe in and that we're going to fight for. Thank you.